Opening a bank account in Dubai can be very, very easy or very, very tough. It depends on you. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make it easy and how to avoid any delays.
There's no one back up. There's no one back up.
A big challenge that people face is opening up bank accounts in Dubai because they simply don't understand what is required of them. So you're here to really take everyone through the entire process to make sure that it's smooth for them. So let's start with what is the process and the necessary documents that are needed for setting up a company account in Dubai.
Okay. Like you rightly introduced, there are challenges associated. So I would want to explain this topic as much in simple form because I think that's important. So coming to your question, I'm going to answer the second question, the second bit first. What are the documents required? Now the documents are extremely simple. I'm going to bifurcate them. So the first is your identification document, which is your passport, your visa, your Emirates ID. Okay, you require that. Then you have your personal documents. What are your personal documents? It's your CV, basically telling about your past experience, what you've been doing. It has basic information like your phone number, your email address, your website of your company, if you have any. Third is your corporate documents, which is basically issued by the government or some authority, which would be typically your trade license, your shareholding pattern, your memorandum, articles, and so on. If there's a power of attorney, that would also be included. And the fourth is your financial documents. Now, your financial documents literally need to have your bank statements. Some banks do even ask for audited reports. So you would have to get that. It's basically knowing your source of income and your source of funds. Now, we come to the first part of your question, which is the processes. Now, processes, I'm going to again categorize it. One is you either go with a digital bank, which is extremely simple to do it. Second is you go with a traditional bank. Now, if you're going ahead with a traditional bank, you can't just walk in the bank and tell them, let's just go ahead and open my account. The right thing is take an appointment, meet the banker. You will have to sign on a few forms, or if the application is done digitally, there'll be a digital signature. Once you finish that, then the process would begin. But bear in mind, the process only starts ever since you have given each and every document that is required.
And what are the typical costs and fees associated with maintaining a bank account in Dubai for businesses?
Okay, this could vary. For example, if some client is doing high volume transactions, right? So in that case, they would take a higher value account. In that, there is no fees per se, but there is an average monthly balance. If the client doesn't maintain that, then anything that if it goes less and if the client doesn't maintain it, then there's a non-maintenance fees. And eventually, if it's not maintained over a period of time, the banks will eventually downgrade your account. Second is when you opt for a digital bank, wherein your transactions are of lower volume and less transactions. In that case, you will have a monthly fees to pay. Could be anywhere ranging between 100 dirhams to 300 dirhams. Third is if you go for certain banks, which is governed differently. In that case, you would have an onboarding fees and you would also have an annual maintenance fees. So it really depends on which bank you go ahead with.
What kind of differences would there be in the governing of that bank?
Okay. So for example, if it's a small business, somebody has just set up operations, you're good to go ahead with a digital bank because you're not able to maintain 500,000. Most of the banks will ask you at least 500,000 dirhams to be there. If you don't have a lot of forex transactions, then you're good to go with a digital bank. But somebody who has a lot of transactions and high volume transactions would prefer to lock in that amount, not really lock in that amount, but would try to maintain that amount on a monthly basis so they don't have any sort of penalties on the account.
Okay, so when someone is opening up a bank account in Dubai, what are the common challenges that they could face?
Oh my God, this question can get me in trouble. In regards to the challenges that a client can face while opening a bank account, it's at numerous stages. Let's begin with stage one, which is the first stage. A lot of clients are not transparent and honest when they come to the bank. Now, they're either hiding information because they're worried about their taxation in their country. They don't want the information to go out. Second, they're sharing confidential information because banks keep a lot of confidential information. So they are scared that the banks might breach it and give it to some other associated party or some party outside. And the third is that they genuinely have some motive and hence they're hiding information. If it's latter, then you're definitely in trouble. I always suggest the clients be as transparent, as honest as possible, because whatever information you tell, always bear in mind the banks do have very sophisticated systems that they could find out the balance of the information. So you rather give everything in the first place. Because the second stage is if the bank account is submitted, the clients are given all the documents, they could be questioning at that point of time. So that again could be a hurdle because again of stage one. So stage one is extremely important. You mention where you're going to receive the funds from, which jurisdiction. Is it going to be your own funds that are going to come in? Is it going to be some third party? So you have to have your contracts or agreements in place, or is it going to be from some of your associated companies? So mention all of that. Also, I would suggest is when you're with the bank, mention the first 3 months how much your business is going to grow, 6 months, 1 year. Do a periodic review yourself. Go to the bank, update your KYC by yourself. So tell the banks, okay, these are the transactions that they're expecting. It's going to come from so-and-so jurisdiction. This is going to be the turnover. So the banks are more comfortable with. The challenge is when the clients don't give information. Imagine somebody comes to your house and are you going to let that person in directly? Definitely no. You're going to vet that person for what is that person here? What is the reason? What is the motive? And then you'd allow the person to come in. Otherwise, you will not just allow somebody to come in. Similarly, banks do have a lot of responsibilities and they carry a lot of risk. So they ask questions, and especially if somebody is not from this jurisdiction, if there is no history established here, they would ask you. Similar case would be if I've set up a company in Singapore or Hong Kong, and if I plan to open a business account over there, it takes 2 weeks over there too. So there is no difference. They ask the same questions that they would ask here.
Is it possible for someone that is a non-resident of Dubai to open up a bank account?
Absolutely. Again, the client needs to be super cooperative, needs to be transparent and honest, and I cannot emphasize enough on these words. The reason is because, first of all, you're a non-resident. Your income is not generated from this region. So wherever it's generated from, you have to give that source. It could be, okay, you're working over there, so you're employed, so you give your salary certificates, bonus incentives, whatever you get along with it. If you're a business holder, you'd give your trade license copy. If, for example, you've got some inheritance funds, you'd produce respective documents that are needed. So submit all these documents, be transparent, and obviously have a rationale. Because a lot of times what happens is clients come over here and they want to open a bank account. But for what? What is the purpose? I understand if somebody's bought a property, okay? So obviously the client has to make payments at different stages if it's an off-plan property. Or for example, they have to receive rent from their properties. So where would the rents go? It has to go to the bank account. So in that case, there's a clear justification. So give the justification of why you want it. Why you need an account in this region. Another thing I've noticed is, this is just off the topic, not really with non-residents or company accounts, but just generally, is clients come and they're like, I'm not trying to borrow funds. This is something which I get asked all the time. I am not borrowing funds from the bank. I want to put my money in the bank. Why is the bank asking me so many questions? But the banks need to know exactly who you are. That's why you have know your client. Your KYC is extremely important. Banks take periodic measures to update this. They have different transaction reports, in which they need to know the activities of the client. So today you might not need money, but you're definitely giving money. Today, no banks want to take a reputational hit if the money is not coming from clean source, because like we all know, dirty money, AML, your crime money, everything is routed via the bank. And if something like that happens, the banks get slapped with a huge fine, and these fines run in crazy amounts. Sometimes it almost eats up half the profits of the bank. So hence the banks are extremely vigilant and cautious.
What should account holders know about transferring funds to Dubai? And again, let's focus in on companies and businesses and sort of company accounts.
Okay,
Can I ask that question again?
of course.
Because I actually wanted to know from you. I know like it's about companies and stuff, but this is all relevant to like personal and
100%.
So then I don't need to specify. Okay, fine. What should account holders know about transferring funds to Dubai?
Okay. UAE has no restrictions where fund transfer is concerned. You could transfer as much as you want, provided there's a document behind it, provided it's clean money, provided it's money for a purpose, which is, again, legit. It's not something which is dodgy or shady. You can transfer how much money you want. But something that an individual or a company needs to know when they're transferring funds is to keep the documents ready. For example, if it's coming from my own personal account to my own personal account, okay, I can produce my personal bank statements and show it. Or if it's from my company or my associated companies, I could show it. Maybe because I'm injecting capital in my company over, it's fine. But the problem is when it comes from parties which are not known. It could be an industry which is completely outside, for an individual or a company to receive. That's the problem. So when you're transferring funds, always have the documents ready with you. May be or may not be that the banks might ask for it at that point of time, but for sure, at some point, they will ask for it. So I highly recommend having a CFO service. Even if you're not in this country, have this service. What typically a CFO service does is they would maintain all your documents on your behalf, which is before the transaction, during and after the transaction. So anytime the banks do ask questions or require any sort of reports or agreements or any transaction that they want to inquire about, they could easily pull it out and give it to you. This saves your time. I have seen sometimes there are certain transactions which have a time frame. And if the time frame is breached, if the TAT is breached, in that case, there could be a problem in the account. The account could go for a block. In certain cases, after a stipulated period of time, the account could even close down. And then remediating the account is even a bigger challenge because the banks would have to do effective due diligence, which means whatever you did at the time of onboarding the account, you would have to do that, which is and double work. So it doesn't make sense. So keep the documents always handy.
That's great.
And just to add on that, in case if it's a traditional bank and you have a relationship manager, now relationship manager is also very important. Their jobs should not be taken lightly. So if you inform your relationship manager before that you're receiving these funds, they would ensure that it's updated in their records. They would ask you proactively for documents. So just think on these parameters before you execute a large transaction.
That's great. Just for the edit, when I started talking just before, just please cut me out because after I stopped, Zeba kind of carried on with the sentence, but there is a point there that you can cut me out and the sentence sounds clean. Okay, great. Thank you, Zeba. I believe that will clear up, at least at a foundational level, the banking.
I hope so.
I think it will, yeah, for people that want to open up a bank account here in Dubai.
If you have any questions, drop me an email on the address mentioned below and share it with someone who may need it.
There's no one bad